The ghost in the anatomy lab. In the heart of Mumbai, nestled between ancient buildings, lies one of the oldest medical colleges in India. It was in this institution that Raj, a third-year medical student, found himself studying late one night, preparing for an upcoming anatomy exam. The dissection lab was always a quiet place, but at night it took on an eerie stillness. Raj had always heard strange stories from senior students, whispers about the cadavers moving or strange sounds late at night, but he dismissed them as stress-induced hallucinations. Determined to ace his exam, he stayed behind after his friends left for the night. Alone in the cold, dimly lit dissection hall, surrounded by lifeless bodies, Raj focused on his textbooks and notes, occasionally glancing at the cadaver laid out before him. As the clock ticked past midnight, Raj began to feel uneasy. The hum of the air conditioning was the only sound breaking the silence. Just as he turned back to his textbook, he heard a faint scraping sound. His heart skipped a beat. He scanned the room but saw nothing unusual. Brushing it off as his imagination, he went back to his studies. Moments later, the sound returned, this time louder, as if something or someone was dragging across the floor. Raj's pulse quickened. He slowly turned his head toward the source of the sound, and to his horror, one of the cadaver drawers where the bodies were stored had shifted slightly open. He stared at it, frozen in fear. He knew no one else was there. He had seen the staff lock the lab when they left. Trembling, he stood up and cautiously approached the drawer. As he neared it, the drawer slowly creaked open further, revealing the pale face of a cadaver, eyes closed, motionless. Raj gasped, but convinced himself that it must have been left ajar by mistake. Summoning his courage, he pushed the drawer back into place and turned to leave. As soon as he took a step away, he heard it again. Scrape, scrape. This time the sound was behind him. He turned slowly and the drawer was now completely open. The cadaver was gone. The air in the room became ice cold and Raj felt a presence behind him. His hands trembled as he reached for his phone to call for help, but before he could dial, a whisper echoed through the room. "Help me." Raj spun around, eyes wide with terror. There, in the dim light, stood the cadaver. A young woman, her body draped in the white sheet from the drawer. Her face, pale and expressionless, stared directly at him. Her lips moved as she whispered again, "Help me." Unable to move or speak, Raj's mind raced. He had studied this body earlier that day. She had died under mysterious circumstances found in an alleyway with no identification. The case had unsettled him, but now, standing before her reanimated corpse, he felt pure dread. Suddenly, she lunged at him, her cold, lifeless hands wrapping around his neck. Raj struggled to free himself, but her grip tightened, the room spinning around him. His vision blurred as he gasped for breath, her face inches from his. Her lifeless eyes bore into his as if begging for release. Just as his strength faded, the lights flickered, and the woman vanished. Raj collapsed to the floor, gasping for air, his heart racing. He scrambled to his feet and ran out of the lab, not stopping until he reached the dormitories. The next morning, Raj reported the incident to the staff, but no one believed him. They dismissed his story as the result of stress and exhaustion. But Raj knew what he saw, and from that day on, he never stepped foot in the anatomy lab alone. A few weeks later, Raj discovered an article about the unidentified woman. She had been murdered, strangled to death. Her killer was never found, and her body remained unclaimed in the morgue, her spirit lingering, waiting for justice.